Good evening. Thank you for tuning in to Watch School Psych Podcast. Really excited for tonight. It's been a long time coming. We have a repeat appearance here from Dr. Harris, so excited to have her back. My name is Rachel. I am a school psychologist in Maryland right now. You'll notice that we are down Rebecca tonight. She had something else come up, so Eric and I were joking before. We're like, between the two of us, we could maybe be half a Rebecca. So we can't. she brings so much, and then we're like, how are we going to talk about talking through blue sky? And we're like, well, we're probably not going to be able to do that. But if you do have a live comment, Rebecca's usually the one that explains how to make those. You can just chat along the YouTube, and so your name will come up. Sometimes we'll flash that on the screen as well if you wanted to talk. I will try and keep an eye out for Twitter. Hashtag Psyched Podcast, and also on the Facebook School Psyched Podcast page. So we'll try and keep an eye out, and please feel free to comment and participate. But I'm going to turn it over to Eric, who will figure out anything that I forgot to say. Eric.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, so we'll hopefully have Rebecca back for our next one. But as Rachel said, if you're here and you're commenting live, the easiest way is to comment right on the YouTube video or comment on Facebook or Twitter. We haven't figured out Blue Sky yet, so maybe we'll get your comments later, or Rebecca will get your comments later. But we'd love for you to participate in the conversation live, and certainly follow up afterwards if you're listening, through iTunes or just online. Feel free to chime in or reach out with questions, and we'll continue the conversation. So we're excited tonight to welcome back Dr. Karen Harris. She was a guest previously, and we'll note which podcast number that was so you can reference. And we're looking forward to getting some updates on her latest research and diving into evidence-based writing assessment. And just a little bit about her. Dr. Karen Harris is the Mary Emily Warner Professor in the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College at Arizona State University. She is a former general and special education teacher. Her research focuses on theoretically based interventions for the development of academic and self-regulation abilities among at-risk students and those with disabilities, as well as effective models of in-service teacher prep for writing instruction for all students. She developed the self-regulated strategy development model of strategies instruction, and she's the former editor of the Journal of Educational Psychology, and she has co-authored or co-edited several books and over 200 peer-reviewed publications. She's recipient of the Distinguished American Educational Research Association and the Career Research Award from the International College of Exceptional Children. So welcome back, Dr. Harris. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here and get to follow up on what we talked about previously.
Yeah. So go ahead, Rachel.
I was going to say it was episode 155, and I'm going to drop the link in the chat too for anybody that wants to go back, refresh their memory, or circle back to that after you've seen this one.
Awesome. So, Dr. Harris, what kinds of things, we chatted just before the episode started. There's been a lot of movement in the science of reading and a lot of movement in science of math. What kinds of things are going on in the science of writing? What kinds of new things and research can you tell us about?
Well, there's a lot going on. I'm going to follow up on what we've done and the role of formative assessment in reading to learn, and then writing for different genres. And we're going to look at examples from grades 1 to 6. But the other thing that's exciting that's going on right now, briefly, is that there are now 21 studies of practice-based professional development with teachers, and then teachers teaching the whole class, doing their own instruction independently, but with backup and support from the PD leaders. And teachers are getting, and this does not surprise me, although people have written for literally the last 2 decades that it would never happen, teachers actually get equal or higher effect sizes, changes in student writing, than the researchers do. I've argued for years that would happen because teachers can carry what they're doing through the school day, especially in the elementary grades, but even in secondary. So that, I think, is really exciting for our field and for writing research. And then, of course, one of the biggest issues we have in writing right now is assessment. We are not reading, we are not math. If you look at those two fields, the development of assessment has been driven by a big interest in those fields, and now science is getting there too. And so there are assessments across grade levels, different forms of reading, different kinds of math. But in writing, we have a list of norm referenced assessments. But let's take, for example, something like the WIAT-4. The WIAT-4 is a descriptive expository essay done in 10 minutes. Now on the WIAT-3, it was that descriptive expository essay was write about your favorite game and why it's your favorite and so forth. Okay, first of all, we could debate whether that's an expository prompt or not, but we won't right now. 10 minutes of writing, no time for planning. It's not a power assessment of what students know or what they can do. The TOEL is another very popular writing test in the elementary grades, the test of written language. It's only story writing. So the huge issue we have is that there is no test that tests the different genres. So let's talk about what the big three are. So we know that we have to address narrative writing, which can be writing stories, biography, personal narrative. We have to address writing to give an opinion, to persuade, and to argue. That's one genre that develops over grade levels. Now, technically, each of those three has its own genre characteristics. And you could arguably say they're all quite different, and they are, in fact. If you expect someone to write an argument and they've only learned to persuade, they're not going to write a sophisticated argument with rebuttals and so forth. And then, of course, we have the writing to inform, or the broader category of expository writing. We don't have it. We don't have assessments norm referenced across these different genres and across the grade levels. The TOEL is only good for certain grade levels, etc. And when we do give a norm reference test, all we're really getting is a score that says in the normal curve, this student, if this is normal, this student's here or here or here or here. It's not telling us anything about that's really useful for instruction, what they can do, what they can't do, what they need to learn next, how to support that learning. And Stanford did a review of assessment in writing and the other areas. They did a beautiful paper. And one of the things that they argue for is that in instruction, we need that formative assessment. We need the teachers. It's the teacher's eyes, the teacher's ears, the teacher's attention that helps them know, okay, this kid is here. I think I could push him there, or lead, or entice, whatever word we like. Or this kid is over here. I don't want him working on these goals. Okay, we're already here. How do I get him here now? So it's not just writing performance. It's not just number of words written, number of parts of a genre. It's not that. It's not just quality. Our attitudes changing, our beliefs in the self as a writer changing. SRSD focuses on all of these. Is understanding the role of effort changing? Do kids now say, yeah, this happened because I put in the effort? Not, oh, well, I guess I was born a better writer than I thought I was. We hear this often. I was born this way. You can't change me. So it takes a while to change those beliefs. Engagement, persistence, the role of strategies in learning and in doing. So those are the things that formative assessment help us understand. And we're going to look at some kids writing and talk about how the teachers who taught these kids and how you who are here watching today see what you might think, I need to work on this, this, and this for this student. I do want to say that typically when we're working with a whole classroom, we have teachers divide the students pre-test. And giving a pre-test, we don't call it a test. The teacher just says, I want you to do your best. I'm going to ask you to write about this. I want you to do your best. I'm not grading it. This is just so I can see what you already know, what you can do. And so the kids do that and they try to do their best. And then the teacher, we have worked in, we do practice-based professional development. We've done many, many, many studies of it in our team as well. And we ask them to sort those pre-tests that best you can do writing into groups. Most classrooms end up with 3 groups. Some classrooms have 2, some have 4. But what they're doing is going, oh, these kids, they have very little of the goals met in terms of what goes into, let us say, writing to inform. And these kids, they're not doing too bad. They've got a good amount. They'll probably get quite a bit better quickly once we start this instruction. I think these kids over here who don't have all the background vocabulary, they don't, I know that from talking with them, not from what they wrote, but I think they're going to need more. And these kids over here, there's usually a few in every classroom who are already doing almost everything. What am I going to do with them next? What strengths are here that I could then work from? So that's the way that we address formative assessment in the beginning, and we keep that going throughout instruction. Now, shall I go ahead and start with some of the kids' work and what we
Sure.
talked about?
I know you have a PowerPoint, so maybe, I don't want to derail you too much with.
No, go ahead. Questions are welcome.
Yeah, so I'm just, so you spoke to the deficiencies of the writing test that we, use frequently. And so does SRSD, they have their own, what are you using then to figure that out? I'm sure you're going to talk about that, so that's why.
Well, we develop rubrics, and rubrics are actually what you're going to see the kids scoring themselves for are the same things that we would reflect in our rubric. And I didn't put a bunch of rubric examples in here because and I'm happy to send you some if you'd like to post them with the PowerPoint and any other information. The rubrics vary depending on where your curriculum is, what grade level you're in, but we use rubrics. The rubrics are looking for all the same things that we've taught the kids. Now, those rubrics are for the writing part. When it comes to assessing changes in affect and beliefs and emotions about writing, self-efficacy about writing, that's through discussion. Small groups, whole class, one-on-one, whatever the teacher needs to do.
Makes sense. And then when I'm thinking about, what do you think about the common, because there are common core standards for writing. Is that some of the things that you would see in a rubric as a common core? Like some people complain about the common core. So I just want to say, is it up to snuff from your perspective?
Well, the common core is a tool. It's not a perfect tool. We can quibble, and I have in writing and in presenting sometimes, over what's in what grade level and how do we know these expectations. And quite honestly, I had a chance to meet with the 2 women who developed the writing standards, and I've seen them present, and they're quite straightforward. There is no developmental research in writing. We have no clue what you should be able to do in kindergarten, first grade, second, third. We just know what kids have done in the past and what writing curriculums used to look at. So they look back at what kids were asked to learn in the past, and they built on that. And then they built on other information, like what it takes to have a good essay or a good story. So I think it's a good tool, and then we have to modify it. And everyone listening knows, when I taught 4th grade, I had primer readers to 6th grade readers in my 4th grade classroom. And so what happens? You can't teach every student exactly the same way. You can set a structure that all the students are going to learn, but then you've got to modify instruction to meet the student where they are. That is absolutely critical. And that's part of what formative assessment lets you do. And we'll see how some kids did then. But I think that is a really important focus for us in writing instruction. It's not categorizing, excuse me, as much as it is being able to say, I'm starting here, but I can clearly see a path to here. And some kids, I can see a path over here.
That makes sense. We've had guests on before who have talked about, I think with math, Dr. Vanderheyden has spoken about, it's not so much a developmental sequence of you're this many years old, so you should be doing this. It's like, what have they been taught previously? Where are their skills now? What's the next skill in that progression? So
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So I am showing my slides now. Let me go back. So we're going to look particularly at 1st through 6th grade students who are learning through source text and then writing. Now it says writing to inform at 1st through 6th, but it should have said writing to inform at 1st and writing to persuade at 6th, but it didn't fit. So we've got that title's a little bit off. But let's get into what the kids look like. Now, if you go online to this link, all of the 1st and 2nd grade all of the 2nd grade teacher and student materials, they're all on that link. All the professional learning lesson plans, everything is there. It's all free. Go to the link, download it, it's yours. For 1st grade, we're still fine-tuning 1st grade readings, but you could modify the readings that are in 2nd grade just down a little simpler. And the information you'll have there and the information you'll see tonight would also show you how to modify to 1st grade. But we're hopeful in a few months to have 1st grade up free as well. When we get to 3rd to 6th grade, there's another link and you'll be able to get all of those materials as well. All right, so, okay. When we did this instruction, the kids varied, but all the students learned. I'm going to show you 2 sample pre and post tests at grade 1 and then at grade 2. These aren't the very best and they aren't the very lowest. They're sort of representative. I have some more in the middle, but we don't have time to do all that. So we're going to just focus on those 2 and you can think about the middle. When I show you these, I'm going to ask you to jump in the comments and give me some ideas. Where would you focus your instruction after you look at the pre-test? Then after you look at the post-test, where would you focus now? Now that they can do this, what is your assessment? What is looking at what they're doing tell you? And we have goals for them. Are they meeting those goals? So you've got to think, and do I need new goals or do I change my goals? All right. So people who weren't here previously didn't see how we taught writing to inform. There's no magic in the mnemonic. TIDE stands for topic sentence. Tell me what you're writing about. I want to learn about. What are the big ideas? At 1st grade, they could do 1, 2, or 3, and an ending that wrapped it up. 2nd grade, developmentally, we asked more. Now, we learned that some, but very few, 1st graders we were working with could go straight to 3 ideas. And we were working in all low socioeconomic schools in a lot of marginalized neighborhoods. If you're working with kids who come in with higher skills, you're going to modify. You might go for half your class or more. You might go straight to this version, topic, sentence, big ideas, 3 or more, and wrap it up right. Writing to inform at grade 2, even more advanced, and we had some 2nd graders who could do this, 1 or more detail for each big idea. So we need to save water. One reason, the earth is running out of the amount of water we need for every human being to have the water they need. Give me a detail. And they have it, and they've learned it in their marking up close reading, marking up text, and they'll add a detail. And they could do that for every big idea. Okay, so they can go further. There's no boundaries on this. All right, students also learned more about that genre. What is writing to inform and why do we do it? Well, it helps the reader learn. We need to get their attention. We don't require a hook at 1st grade. It was too much for many of our 1st graders when we field tested this. Some of them were doing it by later in the year. It's 2nd graders, we asked them to do hooks, and most all of them did a good job of hooking the reader's attention. Use good linking words, use good sentences, and we work on sentence construction. Make sense, use good word choice, and wrap it up right. Now, these are characteristics not only of this genre, many of them are characteristics across genres. So when we work with teachers who teach, then go to story writing or then go to writing to persuade, they can carry this forward. Oh, do we still need these? What's different? Okay, so kids get that too, by the way. They like that. All right, let's look real quickly. They learned to mark up text. You can see 1st grade at the top, 2nd grade at the bottom. They color coded. You don't have to. You can underline, circle, whatever. This teacher liked color coding. What is the topic? We need enough sleep to be healthy. Where are the transition words? They've circled them. And then what are the big ideas and what is the ending? You can see they've got this down pretty well. Now, they're not supposed to use the same transition words. They come up with lists of their own and use their own. let's take a first look at Pat, a pretest for her or him. I can't really remember. So they read about why animals have tails. They have the reading right there next to them after they read it, but they hadn't had instruction yet. The teacher just said, do the best you can. And the teacher said, explain why animals have tails. So Pat put, there are flies, there are we think he meant predators because that word was in the text. When he came to writing, he refused to write. Pat did not want to write on lined paper. Okay, those of you elementary school teachers, no matter what grade level, look at this. What are you thinking about this student's capabilities right now? Please put it in the comments. What do you see, given what we said they were going to need to learn? What are you thinking about this student and what they need? Oh, come on, I really need some comments from you guys.
I'm like, I'm looking at it. I'm like, I'm going to say something, and it's I'm not.
Oh no, there's no wrong answer here.
Skilled in my abilities of deciphering these.
Right.
Well, there's so little here, right? I mean, we're going to see ones that give us more.
I mean, there's the capitalization is not there. We're not capitalizing
mechanics,
the front
right?
Yeah.
We see the mechanic issues, and they're going to. SRSD says you have to integrate spelling, handwriting, and we did in this study. We also taught spelling, handwriting, sentence construction, and vocabulary. And we had a 20-minute block for those and 25 minutes for the writing part. So we'll look for improvement. But here we see this student really isn't talking about, first of all, do I have any kind of a topic sentence? They're not telling me what it's about. You can see there's really not much here. And furthermore, the teacher added later in discussion, she's not surprised Pat wouldn't write. Pat's attitude about writing was, I can't do this. I'm no good at this. So now we're getting this cognitive affective assessment as well. I put down a couple of notes for you. I am done. All right. So let's look at what happens later. All right. This is Pat at post-test. Now, this prompt was explain why hair is important to our bodies. And again, the reading's right there. It's just, this long, it's right there. Hair keeps you safe. It helps you be warm. That's his planning. Well, okay, that's actually better than the first time. Let's look now at his writing. After 10 weeks of instruction, or 8 weeks, it depended on how fast classes moved, he wrote this, and he didn't just use his notes, which is important. You need hair to be warm. You need hair to be safe. Eyelashes keep you from getting sand in them. Now, we still don't have what? You guys know. Is there a topic sentence? No. Is there an ending? No. Are there any transition words? Does it flow? Is it easy for the reader to follow? So we have a lot to work on, but this was just a beginning for him. We work really hard with teachers to see that first set of instruction as a beginning, not an ending. I know what I'll work on now in small groups. I'll take other kids whose writing is quite similar to Pat's at this point, and we'll peer review, we'll peer revise. We do all kinds of peer writing, group writing, teacher-led writing in SRSD to begin with. So let's go on now. This is Chris. Now he's a little bit more ahead in writing, and he was asked to explain why animals have tails. Text right here. He says all animals have tails. Some animals live in the wild. Not on topic, and we're missing most of the parts. Actually, we're missing all the parts. Okay, let's look at what he was doing by post-testing. Now, this is his note making. You now see, you can see here the whole structure of tide, topic sentence. Do you know hair can protect? Also with him, he's actually making notes. He's not writing full sentences. We can bring his notes even shorter, but this is great progress. Okay, you see his first big idea, second, third. He has a fourth big idea he busted when they score themselves. They bust the rocket because they have more than they had to have. And then his ending's going to have something to do with looking in the mirror. All right, let's see the essay. Do you know how hair can protect you? First, it can keep you from getting a sunburn. Next, don't pull out your hair. Okay, we're kind of off topic. All right, but it's fun. Third, hair keeps you warm. Last, hair can change color too. Oops, off topic again. So go and look in the mirror and see your hair. Now, we would really prefer for the ending to get back to the purpose. But look what I have to work with. This is phenomenal. 3 times a week, 25 minutes of SRSD instruction, 8 to 10 weeks, and we're here. Let's look at the next student. All right, this is grade 2. This is Yale. The prompt again, it now is about birds. Explain why birds fly. Birds fly because so they can survive and get food. Oh, he got something out of the reading, and it's a pretest, remember? And then that's just his notes. Then he says, because so when it is winter, they fly where it is warm. That's his writing. If you put it all together, you actually kind of have 3 big ideas, right? Okay. Let's look at where he was after that instruction. Again, he's got text about a cat, a little longer now for 2nd grade. He puts down in his, Yale puts in his post test, when a cat is happy, it will purr, and when it is relaxed, and when it wants attention, it will meow, or when it is hungry. Okay, those just like running notes. That's just like dumping on paper. You know, what people call in the past throwing up on paper. But he's got ideas. They're there. Now, let's look at what he wrote. It's a little better. So he went from the notes to a little bit better writing this. When a cat is hungry, it will meow. When it wants attention, and when they purr, they're telling you that they are happy and relaxed. And when they hiss, my slide's moving. When they hiss, oh, sorry about that. Okay, sorry, my bad. And when they hiss, they are telling you to stay away, telling animals to stay away, something like that. I can't quite see the whole slide for some reason. All right, now I'm the teacher. Where would you go next? What are some ideas? He has made tremendous progress in 8 to 10 weeks. What all, again, he's been taught vocabulary, punctuation, sentences, so, but also the parts that he should have and why and how to make them interesting. What would you do yet? What are some things you'd throw out there that are missing?
I'm thinking now about building content, right? We've got the mechanics, we've got all of these little fine details. Now, how do we put these thoughts together to become more cohesive and
yes,
and, relevant?
To keep the theme going, use transition words. And what we've got here is what we see a lot in 1st, 2nd grade. The whole essay is 1 sentence. And this was despite working on sentence construction. So I would go to revising, right? I mean, there's plenty here to revise. Whereas with some students, you may need to build up more of an essay, get them more support there until they're ready to go on and do more revising. But I've got enough here to revise. And now I would teach a revising strategy. I'll show you a book later. It has peer revising, self-working on advising. But I would then take this writing and compare it to what we said we want to do, and I would compare it to model texts. We use model text through instruction. So I'd go back to some of these model texts written at their grade level and writing level. Okay, no, I want to iguana. You read it. Now you write a book about the pet you want, because that's written by an adult with a lot of writing abilities, and that's not a model for a 1st or 2nd grader. So I would go to revision and I would work on structure. I would work on more clarity for the reader and so forth and so on. All right. And then we'll look at Nava from the essay prompt to explain why birds fly. They fly because they can. Okay. That's all we got out of it. It was read aloud, read together, but that's all we really got. But then when he wrote, he said more. Birds fly because so they can survive and get food. All right. Now look at Nava's planning. He really leaped. He leaped way ahead. This is just his planning sheet. T is for tide. His topic is cats are very popular. The prompt is explain the different sound cats can make and communicate with others. Hook. He is going to have one. They have a very cool language. Big ideas. First, all of the normal sounds, and you see it on his writing. I've typed it, but he's written this all out. And we teach them to make their own graphic organizers. We give them to them initially, but then they make them on scratch paper. You see all of his ideas. I like his ending. Let's look at the essay. Cats are very popular. They have a very cool language. Okay, I've got a topic. I can tell it's what I'm going into. The first sound is a meow. They meow when they are hungry or need care. The special sound is a purr. They purr when you pet them when they're hungry. A third sound is a chatter, and they are excited or hungry. If you play with a cat, listen to its sounds. Now, they're both good. That this is quite a leap. And again, I would probably go to revising, but I think Nava is also ready for extending. Now, we do need to work on mechanics. Yeah, we're missing a capital here and there. We can clean up a little bit of use of commas, a little sentence structure. We could do some sentence combining. But also, this is one paragraph. And I suspect that Nava could move into writing 2 paragraphs. I think he can, and he could take more from the text. So I've got now a set of formative goals for him. Now, again, I've focused on the writing components, the writing characteristics, but I'm also watching how Nava's changing in his confidence, his self-efficacy. And the teacher found that Nava was a good peer assistant. He was more than happy to sit down and plan together with another student, make notes together with another student. And this is how the teachers did a lot of balancing the number of students they had to work with by having them, they might start out by planning and writing together, and then they would plan together, but each student would write independently. The teachers were very creative about how to keep each student moving forward. Now, we've seen that. These are the rockets that they use to score their own performance. And I mentioned before, they can bust out a rocket if they have more than the parts. If you had a topic sentence, 3 big ideas, and an ending, it's 5 parts. But if you put in an extra part, this teacher had them coloring stars for extra parts. She also had them coloring stars down below for using linking words and so forth. And you can see the progress they're making, and they can see it. Some teachers take these and label the parts. That's fine. Teachers customize. Now we're going to go into 4th to 6th grade. We've laid a template, so let's look at the same things here. But now we're going to be writing to persuade. And third grade teachers are using this. The research is 4th to 6th, but there's some 3rd grade research going on now. But the teachers are already doing it, so we know they can. And all the free materials are there at that link. Now, here's the students' graphs. As we get up past 2nd or 3rd grade, we take the pretest and we put it away. You see the first rocket here? That rocket was not filled out at the beginning of instruction. It was left blank. And kids would go, well, why can't we fill this one in? Oh, I'll show you later. It's just the next 3 rockets were written as a class and then scored as a class. You get to color in the flame if you blasted off your rocket. If you have more than the required number of parts, now we're writing to persuade. There are 8 or 9 parts. And you can see writing together as a class, they're contributing ideas, the teachers working collaboratively with them. They bust every rocket. Those last 2 rockets are independent writing for this student. This student either had all the parts or bust their rocket. This was common. It's not every student, but the majority of the students were using most or all of the parts by the end of 2nd grade. But there's still places to go. This is just to show you what the text looked like. I'm not going to go through it. You can see where he put reasons, E for explanations. It would help if I showed you the strategy. That's coming. He wrote, it's important to save the rainforest. Okay, that's our topic. You see his reasons and then an explanation. His first reason, we get medicines from the rainforest. Study plants to make medicine is how he's going to explain it, and that fights cancer. You see how he's done? Now let's look at what he wrote. Hey, everybody. I think it's important to save the rainforest. My first reason, beautiful, beautiful transition, okay? We teach them not to use first, second, third all the time, but they can use one of those in their essay, okay? I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. It's well done. And look at the numbers running down the side. He's counting his parts while he writes because he wants to bust the rocket, okay? He did a beautiful job. Now, where would I go with him? Let's just hold on this slide. Where would I go with him? And somehow we skipped the slide for the strategy. We'll go back to it. What would you guys do? What might be some things you would set up as new goals for him?
in this, so like 4 different paragraphs, then breaking it down a little bit, maybe?
Absolutely. This kid is ready to go to paragraph writing. We need some time in maybe if everybody's not ready, we're doing part of it in small groups, or we're using models. So why is there a new paragraph here? And then they're planning together and looking for paragraph breaks. Anyways, because of time, I'm not going to get deep into it, but teachers, there are a lot of strategies out there for teaching kids to write in paragraphs, some in our book, some in other books. And whatever's working for you in teaching your students how to break into paragraphs, this gives you a really good chance. And while we're breaking into paragraphs, what else could we do?
You're up, Eric. I don't know.
I know. I'm just sort of like, not as a non-teacher, non-teaching staff. I'm sort of thinking
as
like,
a reader,
as a reader, yes. I might want him to organize the information just a little differently. So rethinking the structure of what he's doing as he edits a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Why is one thing come first? How are the things maybe related to each other? And again, there is more in the text, so he could also go back and decide on a little more. In fact, there are facts in the text. He does mention covering 6% of the earth, but there are more facts. So we can do more to boost this. And then, of course, the second grade, he can illustrate it too. He could make some drawings to go with it. We have a very advanced first grader who wrote 3 pages on giraffes and did a picture, and her ending was, "Don't stand too close, you could get kicked." It's a great piece.
I'm
Okay,
also wondering, question.
Mhm.
So he started that off with like a, "Hey, everybody." Like, does that, that's fun and whatnot, but I'm wondering like what the purpose of maybe like knowing your audience type of thing. We had GV was watching and he asked about like maybe more details as well, which details, I feel like everyone could benefit from details all the time. So that's a good go-to.
I agree. And this is so strange. I don't know what happened. It should include the slides that showed the strategy that we taught. It is in this book, Powerful Writing Strategies for All Students. This strategy is called TREE, topic sentence, 3 reasons. What is it you believe? What is it you want to persuade someone to agree with you about? And also, we're very straightforward. You're not always going to convince your reader. It's just try your best. But people have different beliefs, and it's not a failure if they don't agree with you. You just have to do your best to try. And TREE is topic, sentence, tell what you believe, and what you're going to write about it. And then 3 reasons you believe it, and then explain each reason further, and then an ending, wrap it up right. Now, we haven't talked too much about the endings for our second graders, but I would say that at least at least one first grader and maybe both our second graders could also learn a little bit more than what Common Core wants, which is now you know why, medicine, yada, yada, just, maybe something that appeals to emotion. No, there's ethos, lothos, pathos. So maybe apply a little more logic in your ending. Like, doesn't it make sense now that we need to save water? So we could get into some of this as well. All right. Okay. That appears to be the end of those slides, and I don't know what happened. Somehow in the transition, I lost a few slides, but it's not a big deal.
I can,
most of it is there.
Okay, because I posted the link for everybody, and so if you want me to share it on my end, or I can try that. I know
either that or I saved the wrong version. You can take a look, but it's okay. We can talk some more about how this works.
Yeah. I did have a question. And so while I'm trying to pull that up, maybe you can do that. But I noticed obviously the first example that you gave, like you said, there wasn't much there. There was like kind of 2 half sentences or something. So the, amount, and you see that a lot in classrooms, that some will write a word and others are writing this big thing. Is that kind of the first step to get them? I've seen a lot of things on like writing fluency and just like increasing that amount that they're writing. I'm assuming that you're at the same time teaching the other things. You're not just like, first we need to get them to write a lot and then we work on it. I'm sure it's concurrently, but just wondering about how that writing fluency and the amount they're able to get on the page and like how difficult that is to get that out, how much that plays into their writing skills.
It plays in a lot, and that's why with SRSD instruction for decades, we've been saying SRSD is not a complete writing curriculum. It's not a complete writing program. It is focused on genre instruction, learning how to communicate with a reader, take in the reader's concerns, possible ideas, their perspectives, then aim your writing at that reader or group of readers. And you cannot be an extremely effective writer if you don't have fluency with skills, handwriting, spelling. And of course we can, the computer can help us today to look at spelling, but when you have to stop and look, every time you're stopping, you're interrupting the thought process of what you want to say, what you're going to put in your essay. So yes, but this is why in this particular study, the first time we had the funding to do both, to do those skills and the sentence construction and all of it. And the vocabulary development, we studied how their vocabulary developed when they talked about writing. And we did that by interviewing them and having them tell us what they would teach a peer about reading and then writing to inform. And they're using all the vocabulary, the academic language. Oh, well, first of all, you have to make a decision about what it is you're going to write about. You read this, now you make a decision. And then you have to put it in words. And then, you need to explain those. They really got it. They've got it really well. And we have a lot of fun. The teachers make it up. We don't. They use songs, chants, hand motions, all kinds of, just so much fun. There is also online a free resource list for SRSD instruction. But I can just send it to you, Rachel, if you want to put it up, because a lot of those videos it's 13 pages. A lot of it is free, and all of the videos you can just go and watch. So, but what happens with fluency? All right, in this study, we did not get as big an increase in handwriting fluency as we'd hoped to see. I think we are realizing, along with so many teachers, that this building fluency in handwriting is far more demanding in first grade than we realize, and that it really does need to start in kindergarten. I'm not worried about perfect letters and perfect fluency in kindergarten, but we do need to get some basic lines and some basic letters that we can do really pretty easily. Maybe we just work on lowercase or just work on uppercase, but we do need to start some of this in kindergarten. It's the muscle fluency, the automaticity that we're after. And that muscle memory, that automaticity, that takes time to develop. So, but we did get a lot more writing, a lot more writing. You could see that just in the two students at each grade you looked at. If I had been in that classroom and kept going, we would have had even more writing. And a lot of this transfers to the next kind of writing you learn. Doesn't transfer, the strategy doesn't transfer. You need tree when you're going to persuade. You need tide. The kids call it tree of persuading and tide of informing. That's what they call it. And we did the study where we taught both in one grade level. And we also had a study where we did story writing, and then we did writing to persuade. And the kids felt writing to persuade was much easier, so it should be taught first. But most school curriculums focus on teaching story writing first, because kids have heard a lot of stories, read some stories. They should have innately figured out how to write a story, but that's why reading I Wanna Iguana and having a wonderful discussion, which I saw a teacher do, and then saying, okay, now you just write out your ideas on what pet you'd like to have. And most of the class literally just sat there. And after she started SRSD instruction, one of her comments was, nobody sits there anymore. They know exactly how to start. They know what to do. And they get going. And that's exciting. And then when we get up to the older grades, 4th, 5th, 6th, 3rd, we may not get more writing, but we get much better writing. So we don't work on length in the first version. They're already able to write more, but in revising, We're going to move to paragraphs. We're going to add more. There's so much. Once they've got that first, if you read my first text, I'd be so embarrassed. I mean, but that's what we put kids through, right? All the time. It's your first draft. Now let's look at it. Let's evaluate it. Well, I'm always evaluating my writing, but I don't have somebody else doing it over my shoulder with me. So it has to be in a real safe environment. Let's look at what we've learned. Let's celebrate what we've learned. Now let's set our goals for next time. We have goal setting sheets in the book. We have goal setting sheets in the materials that you can access online. And then as you change those goals, your formative assessment has to track that, not just the goals for writing, but now put a kid together with another student. Maybe you have a new student in class and this student doesn't know the strategies and doesn't know what the student does. Can you help me out, Sally or Peter? Can you work with this student, show them what you've been learning and tell them how it works? And then, oh, look, okay, you've got this all explained. You've gone through the rockets and you've got a folder going for the student now. Now, could you do one together? And it really, really helps. And what you're doing as a teacher, you're listening in on this while you're around working with others or while you go by to check on them. And you're assessing for all the students who are doing this, you're assessing, is there resistance in the new student? Is there attitude of one, I hate writing? Do you need that discussion? We open all of our writing instruction with a discussion. How do you feel about writing stories? How do you feel about writing to teach somebody something? And grades 1 and 2 are a delight. It's a joy. They still like writing. They're excited to write. Grade 3 is where it changes. And these attitudes and these beliefs about self are the biggest barriers you have to get through. So if you don't assess those, you're not going to get nearly as far because you've got to work on those attitudes. Now, in the materials online, it'll show you exactly how discussion was framed to talk about this, but it's not a scripted discussion. Nothing in SRSD is scripted. It shows you a framework. You think about your student, you hold that discussion for your students. In the book, there's an example modeling where we just took down what teachers did and we put it in the book as an example, but that doesn't mean you would model it the same way. And what's different about modeling in SRSD that aids formative assessment? A lot's different. When teachers model, it's just not the first thing I do is, okay, I need a topic sentence. They start out more like this. And there's some great videos on that resource list. And they'll be, oh my God, this one teacher is a first-year teacher. He took to modeling like that. And he had never heard of cognitive and affective modeling, but he just got it. And he goes, oh my gosh, I have to write. I don't feel like writing. I'm tired. I don't like writing. So then he looks at his students and they've had all the instruction. They've had all the discussion. He goes, help me out. How do I get going? And I'll never forget this little fourth grader raises her hand. She goes, you need to tell yourself that writing isn't boring. It can actually be fun. And you need to use your strategy. And she gives him this little pep talk. And he's just like, oh, you're right. I do have a strategy. I know a trick for this. So you let them interchange those words. And it makes all the difference in the world. And then when the teacher goes, well, what is my trick for this? And the kids will raise their hands and he'll go, just yell it out. You all know it. And they'll go, you need tree. And then he'll write tree down on the graphic organizer. And it just goes from there. And then at one point he says to himself, they've done a lot and they're getting a good essay. And he goes, I'm tired. I'd really like to quit. And we already got hands going up and they're going, no. Just say to yourself, you can do this if you try. They have great self-statements. In the PowerPoint, I think I sent you, and I will make sure you have it. I think there might be some examples in there, but in the book there are. And also in the free materials for first and second and for third through sixth, there are examples of kids' self-statements in there as well. So you're going to track all of this formatively. And one of the things that we watched in our professional development, practice-based professional development, means that teachers practice everything. They use all the materials they're going to use with their kids. The other teachers pretend to be their kids. You tell them, oh, my kids are good at this, but they have trouble with that. And the teachers play along. They be the kids. They all take turns doing every lesson. So they are ready to go. when they start. And it was phenomenal to watch this modeling and watch how they adjusted as kids move forward. They remodeled as necessary. Modeling happens the third stage of SRSD instruction, but teachers can move it around. And it's all recursive. The stages can go round and round as much as needed for different students. But when they go back to modeling, it's for a specific purpose. This kid is still getting angry and frustrated. How do I help him? Now, I talked with a first grade teacher who I was working with a kid, and the kid literally stopped what he was doing, pushed himself away from his desk, crossed his arms on his lap, and he said, I'm not going to get mad. Mad makes me do bad. I'm not going to get mad. And then he relaxed. I couldn't wait to talk to her after class. Now, she hadn't even had the SRC instruction yet. But what she told me was that in her classroom, she believed in that what you say to yourself matters. By the way, sports is big on this now, you know, self-talk and self-modeling. Big in sports. So they figured out it is quite powerful. And she said, I help every student in the class helps, and every kid has something to help them. And that was his. So we see when teachers are tracking and boosting, okay, you can do this now. Emotionally, you can do this. In terms of the writing components, you can do this. But now I want to see more. I want to see more detail, but I also going to set these other new goals for you. You're going to set goals with me. And they keep tracking that and the emotional, affective, self-efficacy development that's going on. It's all one package. Trying to tease it apart is very difficult. But without that informative assessment, we wouldn't be where we are. It's very, very important. The last thing I want to stress is that the students are self-assessing. Don't forget that. They're doing the rockets. They're coloring stars for linking words. With older kids, they sometimes just use a rubric and use the rubric to assess their writing themselves and circle, I'm going to make this better. This is going to be a goal I'm going to continue to work on. So that's the role that I see for formative, informal assessment. And teachers know this. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. But the problem is in writing instruction, it doesn't get nearly the face time, nearly the focus that it needs to get. Students really need that opportunity to show you what they can do so that you can meet them there. And as teachers know everywhere, then you start to go forward from there. And the SRSD doesn't script any of this for you. It gives you a lesson format and lesson components, and it's all up to you and how you're going to do it. And you don't have to give up a single thing that's already working for you. If it's already working, don't give it up. For goodness sakes, we would never ask that. Integrate it into your SRSD lessons. If you're already doing paragraphing in grade 2, why would you wait? You've already done paragraphing. You've got kids who are ready for it. Go ahead and put those kids in a small group and tell them to use their paragraphing now. You know, don't just write out one thing for me. I know you can do paragraphs. So that's the kind of individualization based on formative assessment that I have been blown away that teachers are doing in our classrooms.
That's awesome. And I love all the kind of supportive, affective, like social emotional stuff. And I feel like that's right up the alley of a school psychologist. And as a school psychologist, if you all are in a school that's doing SRSD, like that could be like, hey, I hear you're doing this program. Like, this is right. This is something that I can support, use the same language, come in. So I feel like that could be a great collaboration. But as you're talking, I'm hearing all the good things that, we know in evidence-based instruction in other subjects with explicit instruction and fluency building and graphing of progress and all that stuff. So that's awesome.
Well, you know, Rachel and Eric, that SRSD wasn't developed for writing. It happened to be the area I met Steve Graham, and I was developing I was developing an instructional model for complex learning. And I hadn't chosen an area to focus on, but I met Steve Graham. He became my husband, and SRSD for writing got born because he was into writing. But right now, the other exciting thing for SRSD is there's research in math, writing for fraction learning, and writing out your fraction solving. Kids' fraction scores just skyrocketed. Word problem solving. There's social studies and science. They're using SRSD writing in those topic areas. So it's beginning to really move into the content areas. In secondary, we really need those English language arts teachers to be able to support those content teachers, because in secondary, we know that they feel even less equipped to teach writing than our elementary teachers do.
I know that last year, you've talked about your studies and your research and, amazing effect sizes we talked about last time. I know we're wrapping up, but what else, any updates on some of the things or things that you're working on moving forward, just so we can kind of be in the know?
Well, right now, unfortunately, we were expecting to be taking our first and second grade work further, more time for skills and sentence work and vocabulary and so forth. We were expecting to fine-tune first grade. It worked. The effect sizes were good, but we know things that could be better. And unfortunately, our funding got pulled. That's happening to a lot of us, a lot of my colleagues. We should be running a study with other colleagues in Texas, which right now we're not sure if it's going to be ongoing or we're about to get that funding pulled. So it is a little scary, but one of the studies that's still running is a combination of practice-based PD in person with online teacher learning. And it's working. And so that means that there's more flexibility. I would love face-to-face PD for all the time it takes till teachers are doing what they need to do in the classroom. But I understand schedules, money, all of these things impact schools' abilities to do the PD the way we want it. And it is working. So this combination of some, it's a little more complicated than I'm giving you. There was a meeting in the beginning, some foundational skills laid and understanding, and then it moved online. And it was online for a good while. And then the teachers got back together in person again. And then it was back online again. And that it's working. And it's being compared to, and the comparison is showing us it's being compared to full-time in person. And for the most part, teachers are doing just as well with the back and forth. And then the next question is, can you learn it all online without that community, without the other teachers? We already know that some teachers are, and they're doing well. I communicate with a number of teachers who've gone and learned it from the book, from the videos, or taken the class. SRSD Online offers a great course. And that's who's doing the research as well with us. And they're doing great with it. But for many teachers, that's just asking too much. They don't have the time to set aside to learn it all on their own. They need back and forth. They need dialogue. They need feedback. That's how I learn. And so we're excited about it, but we want it to be high quality. So that's also a little worrying. How's it going to work? There is really exciting work going on in high school. Dr. Amber Ray has successfully validated a strategy for college entrance exam writing, for your college entrance essay, writing. In fact, so successful that one of the big college writing companies is taking her on board to help them teach how to do that. So that's really exciting. And then she's got really great research coming out on multiple source text reading, evaluating source text. What's their credibility? Is the content really deep or is it very superficial? Choosing their source text and then writing to argue. So it's argumentative, full-blown rebuttals, just beautiful argumentative writing. So I'm so excited by what we're seeing across so many SRSD researchers.
That's unfortunate about the funding, and I'm unfortunately not surprised with everything going on, but that's still upsetting to hear. So
and we can't submit. No one can submit grants right now, except the OSEP, the Office of Special Ed Programs. But right now we're very dedicated to full inclusive classrooms, and hopefully we'll get funding back for improving instruction and inclusive classrooms.
Eric, any last questions or anything? I did have one more that I have jotted down, but I want to give if you
Yeah,
have anything.
no, go ahead. I think this was a great discussion, and
Yeah.
I appreciated we had some interaction with the audience, and nice comment from GV saying this was really helpful for him as a supervisor.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
But yeah, go
That's
ahead, Rachel.
wonderful. I'm excited by that.
Yeah.
You know, the principals who've gotten involved in the PD, they are, and the observers, supervisors, the people who evaluate teaching in the classroom, names, titles vary. They have been so supportive and point on with this work. And it's been really exciting to us to see how excited they've been.
Awesome.
So that's fantastic.
So another question came to mind too. I'm going to try and get them in. I want to be respectful of your time, but I have so many.
I'm fine.
So one, I did want to talk a little bit about just as school psychs, how do you see, as far as, it seems like based on everything you're telling me, that if I'm a school psych and I want to figure out, we're thinking about a learning disability or a kid that's struggling, that 10-minute do a thing on the why and we ought and get that's not going to be super helpful. It seems like the better, and to also put them in our office and under that kind of unnatural circumstance, like that doesn't sound useful. So it seems like I should be going to the teacher saying, can you give me this kid's planning notes and their revisions, and like looking at their work samples and maybe looking at a rubric or some way to kind of then pick out the next steps. Is that kind of correct?
I agree. And even more, the school side, I'm sorry, I think this is just allergies. The school side, Sylvia Rosenfeld's a really good friend of mine, and she has a model of school psychology in the schools that's very collaborative between the school psychologists and teachers. And going to a teacher going, hey, I learned, and I know school psychologists who've done this. I learned about this writing method, and here's some information on it. And I think it'd be perfect for your kids. And and we have had the language, not language arts, but the speech and language professionals have also gotten involved. So they're doing vocabulary during speech and language, and they're doing sentence structure, complete ideas with speech and language. So yes, we could all work together. And I'm really excited when the teachers in 2nd and 3rd grade go talk to the 4th grade teacher, as one of our teachers from last year did. And the 4th grade teacher goes, oh, they know all that. And okay, I could start with, because right now we don't have a continuity in most schools. So our 2nd grade teachers from last year also were so excited because the 3rd grade teachers were saying, they're coming in my room and using Tide. I didn't know what Tide was. Why? There should be continuity. It wasn't the 1st and 2nd grade teacher's fault. We need to set this up so that it's a continuous continuum across grade levels. If I got you here in 1st grade, you can easily go here in 2nd, 3rd, 4th. By 6th grade, you can have kids doing pure argumentative writing. Some kids, we've seen it. We've seen teachers do it. So yes. I saw a question that popped on the screen.
I think it was kind of along the lines of what I was asking too. What would be like kind of the ideal assessment model? And so it seems like, the rubrics and kind of, it's not, as school psychs, we sometimes like a kind of a yes or no and a standard score and all these things, but it seems a little bit more complicated than that you're having to look at kind of the big picture and all these components of writing, the standards, and some of the resources that you're sharing out.
Right.
Sounds like.
I don't think I can tell you what a perfect assessment model would be, but I would say that it's multi-component, and assessment should be coming from peers and teachers and self. And then it should also be across how have my beliefs changed? What have I seen change in my students? Peer feedback that says, oh, wow, look at this, what you wrote. And then after we had a revising brainstorm, look at what you wrote now. And I really like this. And, maybe next time you could also do that. Assessment has to be a living, breathing part of instruction, not something we do on the side. And I'm not against rubrics. Rubrics can be extremely helpful. And as kids get older, the rubrics take the place often of rockets or charting. But I think that we have to be careful with our rubrics. Again, one rubric for a whole classroom, probably not, because that will overwhelm kids who can't be on that rubric yet. We have to start them here. So that individualizing, that differentiating, I see that as one of our most critical goals in assessment.
Awesome. And you can tell me if we can't get into this, but you were talking about the muscle memory with the handwriting, how that's important. I'm kind of wondering if typing is along the same lines or if that's different. Yes. And then I also kind of wanted to ask about, and this is probably too big for tonight, but AI, and if you have any thoughts on how that's changing the game.
Oh, how can you not think about AI these days? Yes, in typing. When I was in high school, we're going back a long ways, we had to take typing and we had to take sewing. I mean, the guys got to go take advanced math, but we were typing and sewing. And from my own experience, but also from what I've learned from others, yes, typing becomes automatic only with practice. And it's partly muscle memory. Muscle memory is a very powerful thing. And it can wear down, though. So you also have to keep things going to keep that muscle memory. I'm a fairly good typist, but when I've not used the keyboard for a few weeks, yeah, we all know how that feels. So yeah, there's muscle memory there, to answer that question simply. And then
like, and you said that muscle memory helps with, sometimes I read things about, for example, like reading from a real book is better than reading on a screen. So I'm wondering, is writing down things, is that better for the writing experience and your learning and your written expression than typing, or are they one and the same? It's just a modality to get your thoughts out.
This is a difficult issue, and I don't think we have quite enough evidence to argue one way or the other. And again, I would sort of tailor it to students. Now, at first and second grade, it's usually not as big an issue because we don't often have a lot of keyboarding in those grades. In some schools, they are. These are generally schools with more money and more facilities and so forth. Steve Graham is a really good person to talk to about this. I still combine. And I think that's where most kids will probably end up. Some of my planning is on paper, and then I move to the computer, and I might put my outline on paper and start adding details there. It's a very flexible outline. But I still plan more on paper than I do on the computer. But I write, revise, and edit only on the computer now. I mean, the days when you had to rewrite it by hand over and over again, I think about the papers I wrote during that time. Holy cow. So for me, it's still, they work together. And I think it's going to vary with different people. I did not grow up with computers, but I look at my daughter. I have colleagues who did, and they do a lot of their planning on the computer. So part of it's going to just be what you're comfortable with. So I don't think we can say, there have been arguments about whether you're writing it out by hand does more for your thinking, and I just don't think we can answer that yet. Steve might not agree with me. And I think kids need the freedom over the grade levels to figure out what works best for them. I'm a very physical learner. I like to write it down and look at it, underline it, circle it. Other people are not. They're fine just putting it on. They can put a bunch of notes on paper and make sense out of it. So I think our students need that freedom to figure out how combining works best for them. And you asked about AI. I can see a lot of good things, Rachel and Eric, that could come out of AI across the grade levels, that I have the same fears that everybody else has. And those are exacerbated by recent articles about how some large language models have been manipulated to come up and say certain things. New York Times just had a piece on that. So I do worry about it, but I can think of many ways that we could use it that would be really helpful for students. I'd love to see students writing more online and getting much more immediate feedback. I think that would be really cool. Be back on their plan. I've got a million ideas what we could do.
Very cool. We might have to try and get you back one day to further the conversation, because I keep listening and I have more questions and I'm like, no, I'm gonna restrain myself. But this is awesome.
Well, again, Steve has been spending a great deal of time immersed in AI for writing, so he's starting to write about it, and we've got plenty of good people out there too that you could ask about this, because it's clearly becoming a big idea.
All right. I was looking for last minute comments or questions, but I think that, yeah, this has been awesome. And thank you so much for finally being able, I know you've been super busy, and like we finally circled back and were able to get you back here. And so, yeah, I'm so excited that it worked out. And I know that in 2 weeks, we're back to have our final episode of the school year. Eric, do you recall who's coming on for that?
Yes, Adam Lockwood. So we'll actually be talking about AI, some current research that he's doing, and some ethical considerations.
There you go. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, so it was a good segue.
And I want to thank you guys, because I almost never get to talk about assessment this much. So Rachel, when you wrote and said, well, we can do a follow-up, and I wrote back, and I think you mentioned assessment, and I wrote back and said, oh, I would love to talk about assessment. I know we could do something in the future, or you could do it with someone else who's very good at this, about the role of rubrics, especially as kids get older. I'm much more focused on K through, we have kindergarten teachers doing some of this now. They're awesome. K through 5th and 6th. But I think assessment is a topic we need to spend a lot more time on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.